Hey y'all, Data Guy here. And today I wanted to make a video for you on a new database that I've just become recently aware of that I think is pretty cool, which is CrateDB. So the idea behind CrateDB, open source database, simplicity of SQL, but the scalability of NoSQL. So it's able to just scale horizontally, keep adding more and more data, but maintaining that query to be really, really quick without kind of the standard restrictions, let's say, you would have if you were only able to query SQL data. Because when you're only able to query SQL data, that means you have to set up your whole database schema. Versus with CrateDB, it's a lot more flexible, so you don't need to spend so much time optimizing. CrateDB just kind of does it under the hood for you. Now, I'm not smart enough to understand exactly how that works, but what I am smart enough to do is show you how you can use this within Airflow. So what I'll do is kick over to my Airflow or to my VS Code, and I'll show you how you can set up a fresh Airflow environment to use CrateDB, and then also make an ELT pipeline, because that's what we do here. We do functional projects. So first, open up my code window here. So we'll expand this out. Let's see, boom, awesome. So what we'll do here to get started is just create a new folder. So let's see, desktop, video repos, and then we're going to make directory CrateDB, and then we're going to cd in there, so CrateDB, and then what we're going to do is astro dev init. And so within here, so we've created our new Astro files or folder. So fresh Airflow environment. So what we'll do now is just go into Data Guy video repos, hit CrateDB, and boom, we have our Airflow directory. So what we'll need to do here is, so there isn't an official CrateDB provider yet, but it can use the Postgres provider to connect to it. So what we can do here is just set pandas, set Apache Airflow providers Postgres, and then what we'll do is actually define it within our environment file. So if you go to your environment file, what you're going to want to have is something like the following. So here, you're just going to put it all in one string: Airflow CrateDB connection, Postgres user, password, host, port, SSL mode, your SSL mode of choice for CrateDB. So instead of kind of using a traditional connection field, like you might, because there isn't really a defined connection yet, and the way CrateDB is, if you work with Mongo, it's kind of similar to like that, where you just put all the details within the connection string, and you don't have to worry about adding any other credentials. And so that is really all the setup you're going to need to do here. It's not super complex to actually get started using CrateDB. But all we'll do now is well, I guess not all we'll do. Now we'll get to the actual fun part of the video, where we will create our own DAG. So if we go into our DAG folder here, create a new DAG. Here we're going to call this CrateDB ELT. So we're going to, because it's so quick queries, CrateDB is good for doing these kind of ELT workflows where you load your data into Crate and then manipulate it within there. And so if we then also bring in our packages, so to start out with our DAG, we're going to need the standard decorators, DAG, task group, task, the chain, so we can just chain tasks together, define it easily, SQL XQ query operator, the SQL column check operator, date time. You're going to need pandas as PD because we're going to be using pandas data frames, shocker. And also import requests, so we can execute API requests. So then once we're done with that, we're going to find our CrateDB connection ID, just CrateDB connection. Then you're going to have a couple different URLs for the data we're going to pull here. So we're going to pull information on Possum data. So if you just want to leverage the data that we already loaded into GitHub here for you, you could get it here. Or if you want to change it to your own, go for it. That's what Brains is just for, just inspiring you to make your own things better, right? So after we got our variable set, some global variables, we're going to create a task that's going to just get names of all the files in a folder in a GitHub repo, and then just list them all in, stored as file names. So just a list of file names that we're going to then extract and transform. So here we're doing, and so the information that we're extracting here is just information on Possum tail length that is stored within this GitHub endpoint, so we don't have to use some public endpoint. Then our next task is going to be extracting that data. So taking in those files, file name that are stored in that file names list, taking that and just reading in the CSV for each of those file names that are stored. Then we're going to transform that data. So this is all just, standard pandas data frame manipulation here. So that's why I'm not going too deep into it, where we're just going to drop some missing values, anything from our possum data set. And now we've gotten kind of our transformation steps defined. We can start defining our actual DAG flow. So here what we'll do is the first one is use create table. So SQL execute query operator. And so as I said before, because there's no dedicated CrateDB connection, you will just use regular SQL, generic SQL operators, and just enter in that CrateDB connection information that you stored as kind of a Postgres table. Then what you'll do next is go to initialize file name. So give it that GitHub API URL. So if you want to change it out to your own, you just change up the variables and the DAG will adjust automatically. Best practices here. And so what we're then going to do is just have create table. So it's going to create a table to store all these. Then we're going to get all of our file names and then return that. So after we've gotten all our file names, we are then going to extract that data from those CSV files, transform them, and load them into CrateDB. And so you'll see here, this is actually being defined as a task group, because within this task group, what we're going to do is run this task group for each of those files that we're pulling from that GitHub endpoint. So we can use dynamic task mapping to do this all in parallel. So here, extract to load, we have our base URL, folder path, file name, and here we're just extracting that data by pointing our extract data task at that particular file, then running the transform data to transform it, dropping any of those null columns, and then we are inserting that data into our CrateDB database. So finally actually loading it into our database. So once we're with that, we can create one task group for each of those files by using dynamic task mapping. So here you'll see extract to load. It doesn't just work for individual tasks. You can use dynamic task mapping to expand task groups, which is really great for situations like these where you want to do a set of transformations or a set of tasks on a particular data set. So here, extract to load partial, the base URL and folder path are the same, but for each file within that folder, run those transformation steps that we just defined. Then what we'll do is a data check. So here we have our SQL column check operator where we're just doing some basic data quality checking, making sure that there's no negative ages of possums because that would mean it's some bad data. Just to kind of show how you would do some data quality checks within CrateDB. Then we're also going to have a SQL query we're going to execute within CrateDB. So I'll show you what these look like in a second. But essentially just going to select data from that endpoint and then group it. So actually, I'll show it to you now. So here you have your select data SQL statement. So this is in my include directory. We're just selecting the average tail or getting the average tail length for each group of possums by age and by sex. So after we've done that, we've executed that query. We then will have another task to actually print our selected data so we can see that it's all been working perfectly. So just printing the results, that upstream query in a nice little format here. So look at possum population. And then we can go down to chain and just chaining all of our tasks together. So bring extract to load, doing some data quality checks, selecting that data, and then just printing that selected data. So now what we've done is we have extracted that data from CSVs, loaded it into CrateDB, and then transformed it within Crate to give us some easily analyzable data. So super useful functionality. So now that we've gotten our DAG written, what we'll just need to do is hit Astro Dev Start. So open terminal here. You're going to run Astro Dev Start, and while this is starting up, I'll pick it over to the Airflow UI and show you around there. So here within the Airflow UI, we can go look at our completed DAG. So you have our CrateDB ELT DAG here. So if we go expand the graph view, select this particular DAG run, you can see it's just creating tables, getting those file names, and you'll see this extract to load. So it's actually creating 3 different task groups for each of those individual data point, or one in this case, because we're actually just passing it one, where you'll see the task group that we're creating for, extracting the data, transforming it, loading it, and then we have our data check steps, select data, print selected data, all happening within CrateDB. And so if you want to actually monitor this data afterwards within your CrateDB, just go to your admin UI. And if you followed all of these steps correctly, you will see something similar to this, where you can see all my different queries or all of my different data points here, and even actually the queries that made them. So go crazy with this, plug in your own data, do whatever you want to do. Check out the link in the description too, because it'll kind of help you along with some of the trickier parts. Just want to download the repo. And above all else, have a good rest of your day. Data Guy out.